Laura leaned against the window, staring at the evening sky as the sun dipped behind the distant hills of their quiet Oregon neighborhood, her fingers curling around a mug of tea she hadn't touched in hours. The house was unusually still, except for the soft ticking of the living room clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator, and that stillness made her heart feel heavier than usual. Across the room, Ethan, her 12-year-old stepson, shifted on the couch, glancing nervously at her before speaking in a low, careful voice, "Can we watch it together tonight?" Laura froze for a moment, caught off guard by the simplicity of his request, and yet she felt a curious tension rise inside her, something she hadn't expected. Ethan didn't ask for much. He was polite, reserved, a boy who carried the weight of his late mother's absence in small, quiet ways, but this evening, his words felt like a door opening to something more, something tender and fragile that she hadn't allowed herself to notice for a long time. She put the mug down, feeling its warmth fade, and watched him fidget with the hem of his sweatshirt, his gaze flicking to the window where the first stars began to twinkle. It was supposed to be a simple night, a chance for a stepmother and stepson to share an ordinary moment, yet Laura's chest tightened with anticipation and a strange, restless longing she didn't fully understand. Ethan's eyes sparkled with excitement and innocence, and she couldn't help but smile, though it was tinged with a bittersweet ache. She thought of Mark, her husband, who had been working late most of the week, and how absent he seemed even when he was home, and she felt a pang of yearning for connection, for something lost, something she didn't even know how to name. Laura walked over and sat on the edge of the couch, careful not to crowd him, and asked softly, "What do you want to watch?" Ethan's face lit up, a little hesitant, a little shy, and he said, "The meteor shower. They say it's really special tonight, and I thought, maybe we could watch it together." Her breath caught. The meteor shower was rare, something she had once loved but hadn't seen in years, a reminder of simpler nights when she felt alive, free, and in sync with the universe, and suddenly, the idea of watching it with Ethan, her stepson, someone she had tried so hard to reach in his quiet world, felt loaded with unspoken emotion. It wasn't just a night under the stars, it was a chance to bridge the distance that had grown between them, a fragile hope of warmth, laughter, and connection in a house that often felt too big and too empty. She nodded, smiling genuinely now, and said, "I'd love that," though inside, she admitted to herself that a small, unexpected part of her had also been wishing for this moment, not just the meteor shower, but the closeness, the laughter, the silent understanding that could pass between them without words. Ethan jumped up, grabbed a blanket from the closet, and ran ahead to the porch, and Laura followed slowly, feeling the uneven rhythm of her own heartbeat as anticipation and nervous excitement mingled in her chest. She watched him spread the blanket carefully on the wooden porch, his small hands fumbling just enough to make her chuckle quietly, and for the first time that week, she felt a flicker of lightness, a reminder that joy could still be found in the most ordinary moments. As they settled on the blanket together, Laura felt the cool breeze brush her cheeks, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain, and she realized how long it had been since she had felt this kind of anticipation, this quiet thrill of shared experience, and her mind wandered to the nights she had spent with Mark in the past, lying side by side, dreaming out loud about things she hadn't dared to think of for years. The memory was sweet, painful, and poignant all at once, and it made her look at Ethan differently, with a mix of maternal affection, protective instinct, and a deep, unspoken need to connect, not just as a stepmother, but as someone who craved moments of intimacy, understanding, and presence in a world that often felt rushed and lonely. Ethan's voice pulled her back to the present. "Look, there," he whispered, pointing to the sky where the first streak of light had appeared, a sudden meteor blazing across the twilight canvas. Laura gasped softly, covering her mouth with her hand, and Ethan laughed quietly, a sound that made her heart ache with both joy and a strange, unexplainable longing. They stayed in silence for a while, letting the sky speak for them, letting the meteors streak and fade, each one a tiny promise, a flicker of hope that things could feel beautiful again. Laura felt a subtle shift inside her, a recognition that these quiet, ordinary moments could hold more meaning than she had ever allowed herself to believe, that connection could be found in shared wonder, in the innocent excitement of a child who trusted her enough to ask, in the gentle presence of someone who wanted the same thing she secretly wished for. And as the sky darkened, dotted with stars, Laura realized that tonight, something had begun, a slow, delicate opening of heart and mind, a moment suspended between the past she couldn't change and the present she could choose to embrace, a night that would linger in memory not for its meteors, but for the feeling of being seen, being close, and being alive. The air was crisp, the blanket warm beneath them, and Laura felt a trembling anticipation, a mix of joy and uncertainty, as she glanced at Ethan, who looked at her with wide, trusting eyes, and she knew that the evening was not just about watching meteors. It was about opening doors, about allowing herself to care, to hope, to feel again in ways she had almost forgotten. And somewhere deep inside, she admitted to herself that she had also wanted this closeness, this quiet, unspoken bond, more than she had allowed herself to acknowledge, and as another meteor blazed across the sky, she whispered a silent wish, to hold on to this fleeting magic, to find warmth and connection, and to embrace the moments that might never come again. The porch, the stars, the cool wind, they all became part of a tender, unspoken promise between them, a delicate beginning of a story that would change the rhythm of their lives in ways Laura could not yet foresee, and she sat there, heart open, eyes fixed on the sky, letting the wonder of the night and the quiet trust of a child guide her into a space she had longed to rediscover, a space of hope, presence, and the gentle ache of wanting something more. And in that moment, with the first meteor fading into darkness, Laura felt a quiet thrill of anticipation, a mix of innocence and yearning, a small, fragile hope that the night had just begun, that life could still surprise her, and that perhaps, just perhaps, she could find in this unexpected, beautiful evening a connection that would light the way for what was to come. Since moving to Oregon 3 years ago, Laura had tried to settle into her new life with Mark and Ethan, learning the rhythm of a family that wasn't born from her own blood but slowly becoming hers through effort, patience, and quiet determination. Mark, always busy with work, often left her navigating the household alone, managing schedules, meals, and Ethan's school projects, and sometimes the weight of it made her feel invisible, like a guest in a home she was supposed to belong to. Ethan, polite and thoughtful, had a way of watching her carefully, never saying too much but observing, learning, and testing the boundaries of this new family. He carried memories of his late mother in his quiet gestures, in the soft sighs when he thought no one noticed, in the way he sometimes hesitated to share his thoughts, and Laura understood that she had to be patient, to earn his trust before she could really reach him. That week, the meteor shower had been on everyone's lips at school, teachers had spoken about it, local news mentioned it, and social media buzzed with pictures of past events. Ethan's excitement had been contagious, and even though Mark's work kept him late again, Ethan approached Laura with a mix of shyness and hope, asking if she would join him on the porch to watch the stars. She felt her heart stir in a way she hadn't expected. It was not just about the meteor shower, but about being chosen, about being included in a small, special moment that mattered to him. As she watched him pack a small backpack with blankets and snacks, she remembered her own childhood nights staring at the sky, lying in fields with her parents pointing out constellations, feeling like the world was vast but full of possibilities, and a sudden wave of nostalgia washed over her, mixed with longing for closeness she hadn't felt in years. Sitting beside Ethan on the porch, she realized how much she had missed simple connection, the quiet companionship of someone who just wanted to share a moment, without demands or distractions, without the pressures of adulthood. They laughed softly as a meteor streaked across the sky, and Laura noticed how Ethan's face lit up with wonder, his eyes reflecting a trust and curiosity that made her chest ache with affection. She remembered her early days with Mark, before responsibilities and routine had dulled the spark between them, and she couldn't help but compare the warmth of that past to the gentle, innocent joy she now felt with Ethan, a bittersweet mix of comfort and longing. The night grew darker, the meteors more frequent, and Laura felt a quiet tension building inside her, a desire to be fully present, to savor the moment without letting her thoughts drift to worries or regrets. She realized that being with Ethan wasn't just about babysitting or fulfilling a parental role, it was about connection, intimacy in its simplest form, about shared wonder and trust, and in a way, it reminded her of the human need to belong, to feel needed and seen. As she listened to Ethan chatter excitedly about the constellations, the rare streaks of light, and the science behind the meteor shower, she felt a growing sense of appreciation for him, for his curiosity, and for the unspoken bond that was forming between them. She caught herself thinking about Mark, wondering if he remembered nights like this from his own childhood, and if he had ever stopped to watch the sky in silence and wonder, and she realized that even though she loved him, she had been craving something he no longer seemed able to give, not because he didn't care, but because life had distracted him, wrapped him up in responsibilities and stress that kept him from noticing the small, meaningful moments. Laura felt the gentle ache of longing, a desire for connection that wasn't fully satisfied but was growing slowly, carefully, like a seed waiting for sunlight. She found herself leaning slightly closer to Ethan as he pointed out the brightest meteor, and he laughed when it disappeared suddenly, a sound so pure it made her chest tighten. The moment was simple, fleeting, yet charged with significance. She realized that sometimes love, trust, and closeness came not in grand gestures but in small choices, choosing to sit together, to watch the sky, to be present without distraction. The stars seemed endless above them, each flicker of light reflecting tiny possibilities and the quiet, gentle magic of ordinary nights that could carry extraordinary meaning if one only paid attention. Laura felt a subtle shift in herself, a recognition that she had been holding back her own longing, her own need for presence and connection, and that tonight, she could allow herself to experience it fully, to embrace the slow unfolding of trust, affection, and the fragile beginnings of something she hadn't dared to hope for. Ethan turned to her with a grin, pointing at a particularly bright meteor, and Laura realized that these moments, the laughter, the wonder, the shared silence, were shaping the foundation of their relationship in ways that words could never fully capture. The night moved forward, quiet but alive. The meteor shower painting streaks of brilliance across the sky, and Laura felt a swelling of gratitude, hope, and tender affection. She understood that even without Mark present, even in the quiet of a normal Oregon evening, the bonds of family and care could be renewed and strengthened. That love wasn't always loud or dramatic but could emerge gently in moments of shared attention and trust,